So a simple story about a very simple car. There's this guy named Bob Hall. In the mid-80s, he had a crazy idea to reintroduce a sports car to the landscape, to the car landscape, because it was really boring at the time. And his inspiration was bringing back like an old school British roadster. Well, little did he know that when he penned that first MX5, the Miata, that he was actually going to create a cult car. Like a whole lifestyle came about because this car landed on the market. It was actually shown for the first time at the Chicago Auto Show in 1989. And when it became available for the model year, 1990 model year, the success was immediate. They sold something like 20 or 25,000, which was unheard of at the time. I had an NA lined up, a pristine blue 1990 with 76,000 kilometers. But unfortunately, I couldn't open the trunk because that's where the battery is located, so I could boost it. So I have a stand-in for the video shoot. The NA that I have beside me is actually not going to be part of this comparison because it belongs to someone I don't even know. So the reason why I have all these Miatas MX-5s behind me is because they are some of the best driving cars I have ever had the pleasure to drive in my semi-long career as an auto critic. The NA, the NB, the NC, the ND. In fact, the real reason is because the 2016 ND, the all-new MX-5, is one of the best driving cars I have ever driven. Period, bar none, end of story. So this is what I was talking about when I was mentioning a cult car and a lifestyle. So many people quickly picked up on the fact that the Miata is a great track car and all it needs are a few modifications to make it an incredible track car. The NB that I'm driving right now has had its suspension done, has new brakes, tires, wheels, and as you can possibly hear, the exhaust has been changed and it also has a cold air intake. The interior has been stripped of everything that is unnecessary. Not that there was much to begin with. Now with the modifications that this car has, it develops about 147 horsepower up from the standard 140 from the normally aspirated 1.8 liter 4-cylinder engine. Now the NB weighs about 100 kilos more than the NA, so the extra power compensates. The different tires on this car make a huge difference. Turning is even sharper, and the suspension is actually really comfortable. Surprising for a car that's so low off the ground. I love the sound of the exhaust and the lack of sound deadening. It's just unbelievable. This car really isn't fast, but you really do get the impression that you're boogieing. Wow. I don't know if you guys know, but I can tell you that one of the first drawings that was done of the Miata was that of a sports car, as in a race modified or race prepped car. This was that vision. And now the NC Miata. Like the NB before it too gained a little bit of weight, almost 100 kilos this time as well. And that explains why it now has a little bit more power. Engine size has grown to a 2-liter from the 1.8, and the output is now rated at 170 horsepower. The extra weight can be felt through the car's controls, but don't be fooled, handling is still, bar none, one of the best in this price category. One of the funny things about the NC is that it dates from 2005, introduced as an 06 model, and it perhaps is the one that dated the most. In other words, it got older faster than the others. It has nothing to do with chassis or engineering. No, it has to do with technology. The cabin of this 2015 is just about identical to a 2006, which means it lacks all the bells and whistles and the screens and all that type of interactive HMI stuff that we're now used to. From the NA to the NB, with little or no change, nobody really noticed. Same from the NB to the NC. But now when you take a look at the interior of the ND, it has evolved tremendously. the NC remains a very safe bet as it is a reliable car and a total blast to drive. Would I recommend it as a used car purchase? Absolutely. If you want to save a few bucks, I think I'd go for an NB, which is still a better deal. But if you've got a few extra dollars, then there's the new 2016 ND. Now aboard the car that is the main reason why we brought together all these MX-5s. Now there are so many things that need to be said about the all-new 2016 Mazda MX-5, and it begins with the following. And done. Yes, it's a cloth top, it's manual, and it's freaking easy to operate. Yes, the new ND MX-5 is on my list of absolute top favorite cars to drive ever. Mazda's nailed it again. If we were to strip away all the sheet metal on this car, you would find a chassis and a powertrain layout that is identical to the first generation NA Miata. That tells you how much work and how good and how right the first engineers were when they designed the original Miata. Obviously things have improved dramatically in other respects, but the drive is pure, unfiltered, raw, and oh so good. It begins with a 2-liter Skyactiv 4-cylinder engine located up front, aimed in the right direction because the car is still rear drive. That engine develops 155 horsepower and 148 pound-feet of torque. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a wonderful amount of power for a car that weighs only 1 kilo more than a 1.8 liter NA Miata. There's, like I said, so many things to say. Steering is direct, the weight is good, it doesn't load up, it's very linear. The brakes are strong, they're not enormous, but the car weighs next to nothing, so it's perfectly adapted to the car's power. And then there's that 6-speed transmission. One of the easiest shifting 6-speed transmissions I have ever experienced. Mazda did this really cool thing where they put all the shift forks on the same side. So when you're rowing through the gears, there's next to no resistance. There's just enough weight behind every shift that you know you're doing the right job. The suspension is calibrated for comfort and handling. So you get the body roll, you get the pitch, you get everything that tells you that you're going fast, even though you're not really going fast. Pedal placement is perfect for the heel and toe. Throttle response is immediate. I think the best of the lot. The NAs is a little bit slower. The NBs is sharp enough. The NCs is a little bit lazier. This one is absolutely immediate. What will blow you away should you ever get a chance to drive any of the Miatas, but especially this ND, is how comfortable the ride is. Now the greater Montreal area is not known for its smooth roads, but this car takes it all in stride. And I will admit to you that I've not been kind to the car. I've been driving it really hard, that I've been averaging about 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers. And I'm driving like a retard, because I'm good at that. The most dramatic differences, and one of the major differences, as I was mentioning in the NC, is that the cabin is now a real huge upgrade over all the previous generations. The materials are a lot nicer, a heck of a lot classier. The fit and finish, top notch. The buttons of control, the HMI, everything is right there, except for one exception. The wheel down here that controls the navigation system, the audio, and all of that. I'm about average height, average build, and the wheel is a little bit far behind. So it takes a little bit of manipulating, to get used to, a little bit of maneuvering, I should say. And the other thing is that if you have the bad habit of leaving your hand on the shifter, you might actually knock it on occasion. And change your settings. Otherwise, the seats are very comfortable and the side lines are absolutely gorgeous. I love those fender bumps in the front. You almost get the impression you're driving a Porsche. The interior is obviously snug, as you would expect, but the two adults can sit very comfortably. And there's one thing I did notice immediately when I was driving the NC and the ND back to back is that my head is so much closer to the windscreen than in the NC. And the reason for that is Mazda has actually made the driving position lower and further forward than in the previous car, which means that you're actually sitting in the middle of the car as opposed to sitting a little bit closer to the rear axle. Now, there are a lot of things that this new MX-5 is not. One of them is inexpensive. Nearly $32,000. It's not the affordable Miata that it once was, but you get a heck of a lot more car. The other thing is that the ND is not fast. It's very quick, and it mostly has to do with the transmission. Now, there's no actual overdrive in the car. 6th gear is a 1-to-1. And listen to that glorious little 4-cylinder work its way up the rev range. The new ND Miata is, to use a line that's often used, one of the best way or the most fun you can have while keeping your clothes on.